Watamote is a 12-episode anime which ran from July 2013 to early September 2013. The anime deals with the issue of social anxiety and being a social outcast. The main character of this anime, Tomoko, has no friends, is completely isolated from everyone, and is completely just a background blur to everybody in her life aside from one of her friends and her family members. She has really bad social anxiety. She's unable to communicate with anybody else besides her own family and one of her close friends from middle school. It's quite a hard anime to watch, not in a bad way, but some of the issues that the anime does tackle can make it quite hard to watch sometimes. Now let's go into the characters. I won't talk about Tomoko too much, especially not right now, as the whole anime pretty much is all about Tomoko. So we'll talk about some of the side characters. And really, there's only a few side characters we can really talk about. Tomoki, who is her brother, younger brother, is an interesting character. He is actually a well-loved young lad in middle school who's very popular with people, girls, boys as well, and is a complete opposite to his sister. Now, he doesn't really like his sister that much. Obviously, there is the sibling love, which can never be taken away. He's in his early teens, so he's at that stage where you kind of really resent and hate your other sibling. So many times he just wants her out of the way, and Tomoko talks to him every day about stuff's going on in her life, and he just sort of has to go with it. It's like, ugh. He's actually quite funny. I mean, just looking at him with the way he's animated, with the sort of bags under his eyes, it looks like he has a lot of stress, and the way he talks, he sounds kind of monotone, a bit just like his sister, but he actually is quite a likable, lovable character. We don't see a whole lot of him, but he's at least there, at least every episode, only for a bit at least. Another character is actually Tomoko's only friend from middle school. Her name is Yu-chan. Yu-chan is pretty much the exact opposite of Tomoko. Yu-chan went to a different high school, and she almost reinvented herself. She is confident. She is, well developed, if you get my drift. She actually acts very feminine. She wears perfume. She keeps herself hygiene quite well. She's confident. She has friends. She's well loved. But at the same time, she's still the same person. It's not like she suddenly just got an attitude and changed a completely different person. It's kind of interesting to see that, because in real life, again, sometimes when people go through different stages of their life, they adapt new personalities and change quite a bit. But at the same time, to their core, they're still the same person. Now, she's in some episodes where Tomoko is trying to reconnect with her, and also just helping her, just giving her life advice, about getting jobs or whatnot and so forth. She doesn't really know Tomoko's situation, so it's not like, oh, why is she not helping her out or anything. I don't think Tomoko really truly told Yu-chan exactly what's going on with her life. Yu-chan's at a different high school and stuff like that, so she's not in it completely, but there are times where she will be in it, and she is a true friend to Tomoko. She's not like sort of, ew, you're like this, so I'm not going to be like that because I'm a different person. No, she's still the same friend that she knew back in middle school, which I thought was kind of a nice little adding touch to it all. And there are some other side characters such as Tomoko's cousin, also her parents, but they're not really in it that much. But they are great comic relief in the anime. Now let's get on to the main thing, Tomoko herself. And it's going to be very difficult from this point onwards in the review, because Tomoko is the anime. This anime is, like I said, it's about social anxiety, being a social outcast. She is the focus of the anime. A lot of the dialogue is her. Where it's her monologuing or speaking to her brother or just trying to speak to people in general. Most of it, at the very least, 80% or even 90 to 95% of the dialogue is Tomoko. So you have to be damn well sure that the voice actor can do a good job, because if you mess her up, you've messed up the entire anime. And luckily, the voice actor did a great job with Tomoko. I had no complaints when it came to her. I thought she was a great choice, and I think she just nailed the whole sort of depressing monotone and the whole social anxiety voice. Like when she talks in her head or when she talks to her brother, she seems kind of calm, but when talking to other people, she sort of stutters like she would, and just being very quiet because she doesn't know how to speak. Yeah, I'll buy that, please. She's like that. It's actually really good. Like we see a a really great dynamic. Even times where she's speaking in her own head, like being angry at people because they're like sort of popular. Like she really rages in her own head, which I think is really good. You know, we see so many different sides of her. Even though she hasn't got any friends, we see a variety of different emotions playing through in her head, or when she talks to her brother or anything. So we get, it's not all just like one monotone emotions in her voice. We get a variety of different looks into Tomoko's personality. And before going on to talk about the rest of the anime, let's just have a quick talk about the animation and the music. Music-wise, there's pretty much none. You know, I think there's like sort of that, you know, that kind of background in music where it's just there. It has no real effect on the emotions of the scene or anything like that. It's just sort of there. The only two real musical numbers is the intro, which is ridiculously metal. I mean, oh my days! I mean, I did not expect to see that much metal in a show about social anxiety. And at the end, there's a nice little, it is very anime-ish, if you get what I mean. You know, it's just like sort of like upbeaty type of music. But that intro was kind of interesting. Why did they choose to do that really metal sort of, you know, death rock music or whatever? I'm not really a big music fan. And it's kind of weird because, like, it's all has to reflect the anime. Like in Death Note, they had that sort of that like rock metal music in the second season as well as in the first one, kind of. It kind of reflected the mood of the anime. You know, the anime did look very gothic, and the music kind of went with it. But here, the intro, why is it so metal when it makes no sense? I think personally that it actually just reflects Tomoko's character. That in her head, that she's just raging out the fact that she's so alone. You know, I think that some of the imagery in the actual intro itself shows that, you know, with the chains around her. It's symbolic, basically, you know, that she's chained up, she can't break free and be the person that she wants to be. And I very much apologize for shouting there, because I think people are going to be like, oh my god, what the hell was that? But the two musical music tracks in this, like the intro and the outro, do help reflect Tomoko's personality. Like I said, the metal rock, you know, that loud music, it just really reflects Tomoko's desires and the pain she's going through. You know, like she's like, it's audio as well as visual symbolism to her desire to become popular. You know, or to be even liked by people. You know, she's like, I just need to break out. I'm so sick of being surrounded by people that are so happy, and I'm so miserable most of the time. It is really great, and it actually is very great music as well. I'm going to use it in the intro of this review and the outro as well. The animation, it looks okay. I can't complain. Once again, I am not an animation expert. I can't really say much when it comes to animation. It looks pretty good. One issue I do have is with the background characters. You know what I mean? Where you just sort of paste like either like a blank color on people, or just like grey them out, or like a gradient or anything like that on them. Just because they're there, they're an impression of people. They're not really the focus. You know, the focus is on the foreground of the main characters. My issue with that is it's kind of inconsistent in this anime. Sometimes the background characters are coloured in. Sometimes they just grayed out with, like, you know, black outlines of their clothes and everything. Sometimes just a gradient. It's kind of inconsistent. It's like, well, choose one. Another thing about that as well is that it's actually kind of interesting how they use that. You know, in anime where like some characters will be background grayed out or anything like that. Sometimes in the anime, Tomoko is grayed out and everyone else is coloured in, or the very least blank colours. Again, it's actually symbolic because it also represents how she's isolated and completely a background character to everyone else. There are scenes where she's like in PE and everyone else is sort of coloured in at the very least, and they're sort of playing, and she's just there in the background, completely greyed out, you know, with outlines, stuff like that, kind of indicating that everyone just sees her as a background person, that she's not really important, she's just there in the background, which is kind of interesting. You know, it also plays into the whole social anxiety and social outcast aspect of the show. Now, this anime is throughout a comedy, and the gags are really funny. It's just her attempt to becoming popular, and a lot of times she's just failing it and just overblowing it in her own head. It's kind of interesting to see how her mind works, because simple things she kind of overblows and make it so far overcomplicated that honestly the reason why it fails is because of her. There's no other force making her fail. It's her own fault that she's failing. You know, she just makes it so overcomplicated that it becomes really funny. There's one episode in particular where, like, say, there's a few classmates coming to like a restaurant and they're eating, and she just really overblows, like, oh my god, they cannot see me because I think I'm some sort of social outcast. I gotta hide. I gotta figure out ways of getting past them. It's so funny how that happens, you know, and how she blows it over the top. Again, even with her quote unquote victories, she overblows. Like, there's one episode where she is in the nurse's office and there's a bed right next to hers and there's a boy sleeping there, and she just overblows. It's like, oh my god, there's a boy right next to me sleeping. Are we sleeping together? And she overblows it and convinces herself that she's sleeping with him. I mean, and she considers that a victory in her own right. And it's so funny how she sort of sees this really small thing to everyone else in on it and watching it are like, well, no, you didn't technically do anything. It's not really a victory. But in her perspective, she's overblown it to a point where she thinks that she succeeds in something. That's actually quite funny. At the very same time, it's also very sad. This is not a very dramatic anime, but the whole aspect of social anxiety, social outcasts, is quite strong. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. I'm going to find it a bit difficult to watch. It does a great job of being both a comedy as well as being somewhat serious. There are some really great scenes in this where you actually feel for Tomoko and her efforts just to have a friend. It can be quite difficult to watch because she isn't being bullied, she isn't being outcast by everyone else because of the way she looks or the way she dresses, or, you know, if she's poor or anything like that. She's outcasted because of her own anxiety. She's unable to approach people and talk to them. It's her own fault that she's like this. Well, to an extent, I know people do actually suffer from social anxiety, but it's her lack of confidence to be able to get a friend or talk to people that makes it really hard to watch. I can completely relate to some of the aspects of the show, and it actually is really hard to watch. There are certain scenes where, like, people just don't even realize that she's there, and she's just trying so hard to be recognized and to be accepted by people that honestly you cannot help but almost cry. I literally almost cried a few times in some of this scenes in this show, because I just felt so sorry for the character. There's one particular scene which really got to me where she's just sitting alone, and whilst like meteor showers coming down and stuff like that, and she just looks at the stars and goes, like, she just does a wish, like, I wish I could have someone here to watch it with me. I was so honestly, it really tug at your heartstrings at those moments. There's not a whole lot of them, but they're really effective and really powerful. Honestly, the stuff that happens in this anime, the stuff that she does, like, for example, the most powerful scene, I almost cried at this, was the fact that she used to sit in the back of the other class, and that was her sort of safe zone. Now she's in the middle of it. She goes to get a lunch only to find that someone's taken her chair. Now, they didn't do it on purpose. They just took it, just sit down and have lunch with their friends, and she realised that, she has nowhere to sit. So she's just wandering around the school trying to find a place that she can just sit down and eat peacefully. So she goes up, trying to go into the roof, but it's locked. But there's a desk there, and she just cleans it, and it's all by herself. She just sits there on that desk and just eats. And every day she would always go there for lunch. And one day the desk's no longer there. That scene alone was so effective and so powerful, because even though she is a complete outcast to everyone else, it was kind of sad, but at the same time kind of nice to see that she has that sort of peace, a place where she can feel secure, feel safe. And had that place ripped away from her, it was kind of sad to see. It's kind of sad to see her just eating by alone, but at the same time we saw her happy. She was there just eating, reading magazines, playing games. We could see that she was genuinely happy to be there, and when it was taken away from her, it was really quite sad to see. There are a lot of moments in this show where I think people who've ever been, slightly shy or have some sort of social anxiety can really relate to this, and it can be really hard to watch. I do advise not to watch it one go, because you'll have kind of like a roller coaster of emotions, mainly from laughter to actual, oh my god, I so feels right now. I do admit, like, you have to watch it a few episodes and then just give it a little break and then watch it again, because it can really affect you personally on a personal matter if you ever had any sort of social anxiety, or you've been like sort of outcasted by people. One last observation that I have seen, and this is in my humble opinion, of course, is that the show is also kind of a parody and like a satire of anime in general. Tomoko is an otaku, and there are times where she tries to implement anime conventions into real life. Like how the whole sort of emotionless girl always gets surrounded by friends, or that sort of stuff, or like, or setting up a club to make friends. Hell, there are even some really funny anime parodies throughout this. There's a Haruhi Suzumiya one and another parody. It actually is kind of a funny little satire on anime in general, like saying like, "Hi, you try to implement these sort of conventions and attributes of anime into real life. They don't work. In fact, they never work." And I kind of found it to be interesting. Maybe it's just me thinking that, but there is a little bit of satire in anime in general in this show. It is kind of there. You can see it, like how she tries to implement the aspects of anime into real life. They really don't work. In fact, they just backfire a lot. It is also kind of interesting to add, just before finishing off here, is the fact that, you know, I may have said this already in the review, like, it's really funny to see that how she thinks something will happen this way, but reality just keeps hitting her in the face. She thinks that if she does this, this is the outcome, but in reality, it's nothing like that. And it's kind of funny to see her overblowing simple things to a degree. For example, she wanted to be a hostess, and we know hostess are kind of like a shady thing, by the way, but she overblew it to a point where, like, oh, she'll be adored by men, she will become confident, and, like, you know, her, and she becomes so sexy and everything like that. But when she gets there and sees what it's actually like, she's like, I don't want to do this. It's really kind of funny how she just completely overthinks and overblows aspects that aren't really like that in real life. So, in conclusion, what do I think of Watamote? It's a funny anime, and it does really hit home to people who may have experienced social anxiety in their life. If you have, I really do say watch this, because you may relate to it. It's not like a normal anime where, like, it said that the lonely, like, emotionless or, like, sort of antisocial girl just suddenly gets 5 friends. No, I will tell you this right now. It's not really a spoiler. By the end of this anime, she hasn't gained any new friends. It doesn't do that. It doesn't play to the conventions of other anime where, like, the lonely girl suddenly gets friends. She's suddenly surrounded by people who love her. No, it doesn't play like that. The whole anime is about her trying to, but failing in every way due to her own ability to actually interact with people. And it's kind of funny, and kind of sad to see her fail. So, in conclusion, what do I give it? I give Watamote a 8 out of 10. I think it's a fun, great anime about social anxiety, also a message about social anxiety and all that good jazz. So, that's it for me. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.